late to 1970, there was minimal airport security until there was a series of high-profile hijacking in the late 1960s. Air marshals were introduced in 1970, but there was never screening until November 1972, when 3 hijackers threatened to fly a plane into a nuclear reactor at Oak Ridge National Laboratory. Screening was implemented in 1973. The September 11th attacks prompted even tougher regulations, such as limiting the number of and types of items passengers could carry on board aircraft. It also required increased screening for passengers who failed to present a government-issued photo ID. The Aviation and Transportation Security Act generally required that by September 19, 2002, all passenger screening must be conducted by federal employees. As a result, passenger and baggage screening is now provided by the Transportation Security Administration, part of the Department of Homeland Security, which was created in November 25, 2002. The TSA agents are in charge of making sure no traveler gets past security with any type of items that could potentially cause harm to aircrafts or passengers. Different types of airport security have always been implemented after disaster has occurred. There is a problem that has come about in the past couple years regarding TSA workers not going through the security themselves. In order to get hired, they have to go through a basic background check, but after that, they're allowed to enter the airport freely with a badge. This poses a threat to the safety of passengers and needs to be stopped.
Brian, our investigation found most security violations at DFW are caused by people who are supposed to be a trusted part of the security system.
Cell phone camera video obtained by CBS News recorded workers over the last several days entering a restricted area of New York's JFK Airport. The employees scan a security card, enter a PIN number, and walk through the turnstile.
Pilots have been caught abusing badges too. One off-duty American Airlines pilot on a personal trip told police he was aware of the protocol, but he wanted to avoid the long lines at the checkpoints. In one case, an American Airlines flight attendant was caught sneaking a backpack through an employee entrance and giving it to her husband, boarding a flight to Germany.
I think the flying public is endangered, and it's got to stop.
Florida Senator Bill Nelson says it shows an obvious vulnerability at the nation's airports. You're not surprised?
I'm horrified, but I'm not surprised. I think one of the main threats is employees of the airport getting on, carrying contraband, possibly weapons. There you have then the potential for a disaster.
I travel usually on big trips around 2 to 3 times a year.
I travel once or twice a month for work.
I usually travel 2 to 3 times per month.
At least 3 times a year, I'd say.
I feel pretty safe when I'm traveling. I've been to a lot of different airports in a lot of different countries, and I've never had any major problems.
Honestly, in today's world, I feel like you can never feel fully safe, especially at an airport, just because there's so many people coming from so many different places, and people are unpredictable. You really don't know what's going to happen.
Overall, I feel safe. Obviously, when you're beyond security, you feel much safer.
Very safe.
While traveling, I felt pretty safe.
No. I thought that airports, after everything that's happened, were doing all they could to kind of keep everyone safe. So with you bringing this up, it kind of worries me.
No.
They believe the current system is working. They have not had any incidents where someone has snuck in using an employee door with intent to hurt people, as far as they know. They point out there are multiple layers of security there. TSA checks the airport ramps. They patrol to question people who look suspicious, but no security system's 100%, of course, and this seems to highlight a back door that is still open to some abuse. Out of more than 140 confirmed violations in 2 years, at least 106 were linked to airport employees and vendors with badges. If we're seeing that many people get caught, how many are getting through without being caught?
Probably much more.
Capel suspects for every one caught, as many as 2 or 3 more get away with it. And if employees can sneak through, Capel says it's an opening that could be exploited even by terrorists.
What you have in place doesn't appear to me to be protection against the lone wolf scenario.
When you say lone wolf, are you talking about somebody, a lone wolf that has access to the...
I'm talking about
that's credentialed employee.
That guy right there that just walked in with a backpack, with a mug. We don't know what's in his backpack, we don't know what's in his mug, and we don't know what is in his heart or in his head.
That's correct.
Does that concern you?
It concerns me all the time.
Worked with the current Delta employee.
Employee screening is under new scrutiny after the arrest of a Delta baggage handler in Atlanta. The employee worked with a passenger to smuggle guns to New York. The baggage handler, unscreened, was able to take backpacks of guns into the airport where he passed them on to a passenger already cleared through security. But Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson's general manager, Miguel Southwell, testified to a congressional committee the real danger the gun running exposed is the threat of potential terrorism.
We've started to see that people are being recruited to engage in terrorist acts, people being recruited from the United States. So now we have a greater insider threat.
Marshall McLean represents an airport police union.
That person went through a background check, but a year after they get hired, they could be doing some other nefarious acts. So there's not a continuing screening process. So it's not sufficient.
CNN got exclusive access to the screening that takes place for what they call the back of the airport employees. These are the baggage handlers, the mechanics, the cleaners, anyone you don't see going through screening with passengers. It's the same screening, no matter what kind of security badge or security clearance the employee holds.
IDs are not enough to stop malicious intent. I mean, you can vet employees for basic information on their backgrounds, but it's not going to necessarily prevent them from carrying out some kind of malicious activity against an airport.
CNN contacted 20 of the major airports across the country and found screening of employees is random and partial at best, and no national standard exists. The only other major airport that does full screening is Orlando.
One of the greatest vulnerabilities for this airport, and probably any other major airport like MIA, is the insider threat. Basically, people that are going to obtain their credentials and use their access to exploit the system. We have intercepted guns, drugs, large sums of money, weapons, knives.
Put it this way, this is, it's a costly program. It's really not that costly when you compare the costs versus the consequences of not having a program like this.
It all comes down to how much it's going to cost the airports, right?
That is a large part of it, and the security experts you heard from, the woman at the Miami airport, say, that's pretty much ridiculous because the cost of not doing this, Anderson, could be huge.
In order to solve this problem, there's a need for a set of laws and requirements that every airport in this country is forced to follow. Our requirement is the screening of all workers at airports, which essentially means every single person entering the airport has to go through airport security. It does not matter what your job is. Our policy is called the Airport Security for Security Act of 2017. This policy is mandatory for all workers at airports to be scanned when entering the terminal. This policy is in regard for any person who is considered a traveler and enters the gate area. This policy is required for every airport in the United States. Under this policy, workers will go through the same procedures as travelers with scanning of belongings, a full body scan, and a pat-down if deemed necessary. This act serves the purpose of checking the power of those in power, in this case, TSA workers.
Can we pretend that airplanes in the night sky are like shooting stars? I could really use a wish right now, wish right now, wish right now.
Yeah, I could use a dream or a genie or a wish to go back to a place much simpler than this. Cause after all the partying and smash,